The sun bled crimson across the cracked plains of West Texas, painting the skeletal mesquite trees in shades of fire and regret. Elias Thorne stood at the edge of his failing ranch, one boot heel grinding into the dust that had once been fertile soil. His hands, calloused, sun-blackened, trembling, clutched a yellowed photograph of his late wife, Clara, and their daughter, Lily, who now lay fevered in the back room of the sagging farmhouse. The bank's foreclosure notice fluttered from his pocket like a white flag of surrender. One cow, that was all he needed. One cow to breed, to milk, to sell calves and buy time. But the auction yard was a graveyard of broken dreams, and Elias had nothing left to trade except himself. He found the ad at dusk, scrawled in faded ink on the corkboard outside the feed store. Wife wanted, must bring one milk cow. No questions, no romance, cash on delivery. The signature was a single initial, M. Elias laughed until he cried. Then he wiped his face, hitched his rusted pickup, and drove north toward the Oklahoma border, where the stranger waited. She was waiting on the porch of a clapboard house that leaned like a drunk against the wind. Miriam, 6 feet tall in her stockings, broad as a barn door, with a face carved from granite and eyes the color of storm clouds. She wore a flour sack dress stretched to its limits and held the lead rope of a Jersey cow so plump her udder swung like a pendulum. You the rancher? Her voice was gravel and honey. Elias nodded, throat dry. Elias Thorne. I brought the ring. He fumbled a thin gold band from his pocket, Clara's wedding ring, the last thing of value he owned. Miriam studied it, then him. Cow's name is Buttercup, she's in calf. You treat her right, or I'll break your arms. She thrust the rope into his hands. Justice of the peace is 2 miles down the road. Let's get this farce over with. The ceremony took 7 minutes. The justice smelled of whiskey and regret. Elias slipped the ring onto Miriam's thick finger, it stopped at the knuckle. She didn't flinch. When the justice pronounced them man and wife, Miriam signed the certificate with a flourish that cracked the pen. Then she loaded Buttercup into Elias's trailer, climbed into the passenger seat, and stared straight ahead as they rattled south through the night. The ranch greeted them with silence and the smell of death. The other cattle, 3 skeletal steers, had been sold months ago. The well coughed rust-colored water. Lily's fever had climbed to 103. The doctor's last visit had ended with a shake of the head and a bill Elias couldn't pay. Miriam took one look at the child, pale as bone china, lips cracked, hair plastered to her forehead, and her face folded like a fist unclenching. Get out, she told Elias. He blinked. Ma'am, I said get out. Go sleep in the barn. This room's mine tonight. She shut the bedroom door in his face. The lock clicked with the finality of a coffin lid. Elias stood in the hallway, wedding ring burning a hole in his pocket, the weight of his desperation heavier than ever. He had married a stranger for a cow. Now that stranger had locked him out of his own house. He stumbled to the barn, curled up in the hay beside Buttercup's warm flank, and cried himself to sleep like a child. Dawn found him stiff and hollow-eyed. He crept to the house, expecting eviction or worse. Instead, the smell of coffee and frying fatback drifted through the screen door. Miriam stood at the stove, apron tied around her vast waist, flipping cornbread with the precision of a surgeon. Lily sat propped at the table, cheeks flushed but eyes bright, sipping broth from a tin cup. Morning, Pa, Lily whispered. Her voice was a miracle. Elias's knees buckled. Miriam didn't look up. Fever broke at 3. Gave her willow bark tea and honey. Child's half-starved. When's the last time she ate real food? We ran out of. Save it. Miriam slid a plate across the table. Eggs, cornbread, a strip of bacon so thick it curled like a smile. Eat. Then we fix the well. Buttercup's udder's about to burst, and I'm not milking into the dirt. She didn't ask permission. She simply took over. Days bled into weeks. Miriam rose before dawn, her shadow filling doorways like a moving mountain. She repaired the windmill with baling wire and prayer, coaxed the well to cough up clear water, and turned the barren garden patch into rows of beans and tomatoes using seeds she'd carried in her pocket from Oklahoma. Buttercup calved a heifer, healthy, spotted, bawling, and Miriam named her Hope without a trace of irony. Elias watched from the sidelines, afraid to hope. He kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, the demand for money, the revelation of some hidden agenda. But Miriam asked for nothing. She slept on a pallet in Lily's room, humming old hymns in a voice that could shatter glass or mend souls, depending on the note. When Elias tried to thank her, she waved him off. Debts paid, she grunted. Cow for a ring, that was the deal. But it wasn't. Elias knew it in his bones. Every night he lay in the barn, listening to the house breathe, Lily's laughter, Miriam's low murmur, and felt the shape of something vast and terrifying growing inside his chest. The first crack came on a Sunday in late October. The sky hung low and bruised, threatening rain that never came. Elias found Miriam behind the barn, sitting on an overturned bucket, staring at Buttercup's empty stall. The cow had wandered through a broken fence during the night. Tracks led toward the arroyo, flash flood territory. "She's gone," Miriam said. Her voice was flat, but her hands shook. "Stupid beast, I told you to fix that fence." Elias opened his mouth to apologize, but the words died. Miriam's shoulders heaved once, a single sob escaped, like a dam breaking, and then she was on her feet, marching toward the arroyo with a coil of rope over her shoulder. They found Buttercup at dusk, mired to her knees in quicksand, lowing in terror. The calf bawled from the bank. Miriam didn't hesitate. She waded in, mud sucking at her thighs, and looped the rope around Buttercup's neck. Elias anchored the other end to the truck's bumper. Together they pulled, muscles screaming, until the cow lurched free and collapsed on solid ground. Miriam sank beside her, face streaked with mud and tears. "I can't lose her," she whispered. "She's all I got." Elias knelt, heart hammering. "You got us." She looked at him then, really looked, and something shifted behind her eyes. The granite softened. "You don't even know me, Elias Thorne. You married a fat stranger for a cow. I know you saved my daughter's life. I know you turned dust into dinner. I know," his voice cracked, "I know I'm falling in love with you, and it scares me spitless." Miriam laughed, a sound like thunder rolling away. "Took you long enough." That night, she didn't lock the door. Winter arrived early, snarling down from the panhandle with teeth of ice. The ranch teetered on the edge of survival. The bank sent another notice. Elias's hands bled from mending fences with frozen fingers. Lily's fever returned, weaker but stubborn. Miriam brewed teas, told stories of her childhood in a sharecropper's shack, sang Lily to sleep with a voice that wrapped around the child like a quilt. One evening, the power failed. The generator coughed and died. Elias stumbled through the dark house, cursing, and found Miriam in the kitchen, lighting candles with matches struck on her thumbnail. The flickering light carved shadows across her face, turning her into a statue of some ancient goddess. "I can't do this," he said. "We're gonna lose it all." Miriam set the matchbox down. "You already lost everything once. What's one more time?" He stared at her. "How can you be so calm?" "Because I know what rock bottom feels like." She took his hands, rough, trembling, and pressed them to her cheeks. "I was married before, to a man who beat me for breathing too loud. I weighed 90 pounds when I left him. Took me 10 years and every bite of food I could steal to get this big. Fat don't mean weak, Elias. It means I survived." The confession hung between them like smoke. Elias felt the ground tilt. All this time, he'd seen a savior. She'd seen a transaction. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Don't be. Just listen." She led him to the living room, where Lily slept on the couch under a pile of quilts. "That child in there, she's the first person who ever looked at me without flinching. You gave me that. You gave me a home. I'm not locking any more doors." Christmas Eve brought a miracle no one expected. A letter arrived, thick envelope, official seal. Inside was a cashier's check for $10,000 and a note from a law firm in Tulsa. Miriam's ex-husband had died in a bar fight. She was his sole heir. The money was blood money, but it was enough to pay the bank, fix the well, buy feed, and hire a hand for spring calving. Elias found her in the barn, staring at the check like it might bite her. "It's yours," he said. "It's ours." She folded it into his palm. "We earned it together." Spring exploded across the ranch in defiant green. Buttercup's heifer, Hope, grew fat and sassy. The herd numbered 12 by summer, then 20. Miriam's garden fed them in half the county. Lily ran barefoot through the rows, braids flying, calling Miriam, "Mama," without thinking. Elias built a new porch swing wide enough for 3. On quiet evenings, they sat shoulder to shoulder, watching the sun sink into the horizon like a promise kept. 1 year to the day after the wedding, Elias found Miriam in the kitchen, kneading bread with hands dusted white. He set a small box on the table. Inside was Claris' ring, cleaned, resized, gleaming. "I want you to wear it," he said. "Not because of a deal. Because you're my wife. In every way that matters." Miriam's eyes filled. She slipped the ring on. It fit perfectly now, after months of honest work and shared meals. Then she pulled something from her apron pocket. a second ring, thicker, forged from horseshoes and hope. For you, she said. So you remember who saved who. They renewed their vows at sunset, with Lily as witness and Buttercup lowing approval from the corral. The justice of the peace was sober this time. When he asked if anyone objected, the wind answered with silence. Later, in the quiet of their bedroom, no locks, no strangers, Miriam traced the scars on Elias's hands. You know what I realized? She murmured. What's that? That cow wasn't the bargain. You were. He laughed until he cried, and she kissed the tears away. Years passed. The ranch thrived. Lily grew tall and fierce, inheriting her mother's strength and her father's quiet courage. Travelers passing through the panhandle spoke of the Thorn Place, a beacon of light on the prairie, where a poor rancher and a fat stranger had turned desperation into legend. And on the porch swing, beneath a sky wide enough for miracles, Elias and Miriam grew old together. Some nights, when the stars burned cold and bright, they told the story to anyone who'd listen. How a man traded his last treasure for a cow, how a woman locked a door and unlocked a heart, how kindness, stubborn, ridiculous, unstoppable, could redeem even the driest land. The moral was simple, carved into the swing's armrest by Lily's pocketknife.